Welcome to New York Got Game.
Welcome back to New York Got Game. Basketball continues in the Big Apple where the Knicks and Nets, they're off to solid starts to their season. Both teams with 3 wins heading into this week. And this week, we're going to focus on the Knickerbockers, who played 3 games last week. They went 2-1. Got a great guest with us to talk some Knicks hoops. So let's get right to it.
The Knicks are heating up.
All right, it's time for some Knicks talk. The team is 2-0 to start their 4-game road trip. They just beat Detroit the other night for the 16th straight time, which is crazy. 2 more games left on this trip. So joining us to talk some Knicks hoops on New York Got Game is a great Knicks beat writer for the New York Post, my guy Stefan Bondy, joining me from H-Town. Steph, what's going on?
What's up, man? I wish I know the Knicks wish that they played the Pistons every time.
Yeah, they do. I almost forgot how long the streak was till the other night. 16 in a row. That is crazy. Yes, that is crazy. Now, Steph, the Knicks, they won the first 2 games of their road trip over Miami and Detroit, as we just mentioned. Those wins coming off after a disappointing home loss to Cleveland. So what do you make of how the Knicks responded on the road last week?
Yeah, I mean, they've looked great in terms of especially the offense. What you saw last, now granted, the Pistons are not a very good defensive team, but what you saw is a lot of cohesion that was missing certainly in the Boston game and in the Cleveland game. And what you saw from Karl Anthony Towns is good passing. You saw a lot of cutting. When they put this team together, that's kind of what they envisioned offensively. It was all clicking. Karl Anthony Towns has been lights out from beyond the arc. And then defensively, you saw the 2 wings, Mikal Bridges and especially OG Anunoby, forcing the Detroit Pistons into a lot of turnovers. So, you know, they don't get to play the Pistons every day, but when they do, they can beat up on them and kind of like this is what you envisioned when you put this team together.
Yeah, it's what Knicks fans wanted to see. Now, when you talk about what happened in the Motor City on Friday night, the Knicks, that is, put on an impressive offensive show against the Pistons in that blowout win. Do you look at that game as a turning point in their approach to scoring, or is it simply just a one-off success against a weaker opponent?
Well, I mean, I don't know about a turning point. I mean, I thought they played really well against Miami, too. So if I was going to get to a turning point, it would be that game. But, you know, what I did like about them, and I think they can project forward, is the movement off the ball. The whole point of acquiring Karl Anthony Towns, well, not the whole point, but a big point of it was to spread the floor. And what that does is that opens up the paint. And in order to take full advantage of that, you're going to need a lot of motion, a lot of movement, a lot of cutting. And the Knicks did that. And what you saw is a lot of backdoor cutting that translated to easy baskets, because the point is to get into the paint. And then once the defense collapses, you spray it out and get open shots either on the perimeter or keep it moving until you get an open lane to drive. And I think the Knicks did that extremely well in Detroit.
All right, they did do a good job of that. Now, you know this, Steph. There was some early concern among the fans about the Knicks' low number of 3-point attempts through the first few games. However, we've seen an increase in attempts from downtown, especially in the last 2 wins. Are the increased attempts in threes unlocking the team's offense right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that was built to shoot. And the way the NBA is right now, I don't like it. I personally enjoy the nuance of a post-up as opposed to, you know, whatever you can do to create a 3-pointer, because that's the mathematical equation that works out. But the way the NBA is now is get as many 3-pointers as you can get, you know, especially corner 3-pointers, because those are the most efficient shots just in terms of percentages. And the Knicks were built that way. And in the opening 3 games, they did not have that high volume of 3-pointers, but we saw that uptick in the last 2 games. And, you know, it looks even better when you correlate that to their pace, which is still one of the slowest in the NBA, which is fine as long as you're getting up the 3-pointers at an efficient rate, which the Knicks had done in the last 2 games. So, yeah, they have good shooters on the team. Karl Anthony Towns, like I said, is lights out. I think he's 65% on 3-pointers for the season so far. You can't ask for better than that. Jalen Brunson has done really well from beyond the arc, too. Mikal Bridges, there were a lot of concerns about his shooting form in preseason. He's looked good. So I think the offense, which is geared around 3-point shooting, really showed what they can be in the last 2 games.
Yeah, they really have. They've been letting it fly from downtown and hitting them, which is what matters the most. And, Steph, with the changes to the roster this season, the Knicks seem to be adapting a new identity. What would you say is the team's identity right now? I guess I'll ask that. And does it align with what we know to be Tom
Yeah.
Thibodeau's coaching philosophies. Does that align?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I don't think it aligns with what we've seen from previous Thibodeau teams. I think we talked about this before, is especially defensively, they were built around the idea that you can protect the rim, and then offensively grab the offensive boards. They're not really built that way anymore. I think with Karl Anthony Towns at center, they're completely different. But, with the wings that they have, and Josh Hart called them Wingstop, which I thought was brilliant. And then he had a SpongeBob SquarePants reference for Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, which I don't understand, because I'm not even going to try to repeat it because I never watched that show. But those two guys are two of the best wing defenders in the NBA. And if they can make up a lot of the problems that they have protecting the rim, I think it can be a pretty good defensive team. I don't think they're going to be top, 10 in the league or anything like that. But I think they can cover up a lot of the warts that they would have protecting the rim.
I'm still trying to figure out what the SpongeBob SquarePants reference is here. My daughter watches that show, and
There was something about a restaurant that do you know about a restaurant where all
the Krabby Patty. I don't.
No, there's another one where like the losers went to or something like that.
I don't know. I didn't know that. I
All
didn't
right.
know there were losers.
Next time I'm on the show, I'll give you the name of the restaurant. Something about Wingy Huts.
Okay.
All right. We'll get back to this.
Oh, Weenie Hut Jr. I was just told this by my producer. Weenie Hut Jr. Okay.
Right. I don't understand it, but apparently it makes sense.
Still not connecting. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Okay, whatever. It's another nickname. We'll get to the bottom. But a nickname I know you and I like. We like Bodega Cat. We are here for that nickname. He's shown some stellar performances recently. 44-point game against Miami. How sustainable is, not the 44 points, but just he's been playing well lately. How sustainable is this good play for him, and how does it affect the team's offensive dynamics going forward?
Well, I think it's sustainable. I mean, this guy's been doing it for a lot of years now. So certainly in the regular season. Now, I don't want to project too far forward because we are still in, the first 10 games of the season. But I think Karl Anthony Towns still has a lot to prove in the playoffs. But he is a dynamic regular season player. He's a dynamic offensive player. So, yeah, this can project forward. And I think what I saw last night that kind of surprised me, and it wasn't just me, it was Josh Hart as well, is his passing ability. He got the ball on the block, and Jalen Brunson cut, and he found him with a behind-the-back, no-look pass, which I was like, wow, I didn't know he had that in his bag. So, I think he's a better passer than we've given him credit for. He's certainly been shooting lights out. And then he had a play under the basket against Isaiah Stewart. Now, remember, Isaiah Stewart is the guy who tried to fight LeBron James. He came in that game, with a mission to, assert his physicality. And there was one play under the basket where Cat just bodied him up, put up a shot, missed it, got the rebound, bodied up Isaiah Stewart again and put it in. So I think that was one of those statement moves, kind of like what happened in Miami when he put the putback on his nemesis, Jimmy Butler, and then flexed. So, he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve offensively. That doesn't surprise me. I think, the bigger questions are about on defense and then projecting forward what he can do in the postseason.
Yeah, well, we will see how that evolves with Cat. Now, Steph, I want to go a little bit back in time to the preseason. Remember those concerns that people had about Josh Hart's role in the offense during the preseason, right? Well, we've seen it. Josh Hart, he's out here doing Josh Hart Iron Man things. What have you made of his adjustment to the starting lineup and finding his role in this Knicks offense?
Yeah, I mean, he's, they need a rebounder, and he's been that guy. Now, I was there when he said that he suggested that he should come off the bench, and I know later he said that, I was just kidding, I just say anything, whatever. He really meant it at that time. Now, he's the kind of guy that complains about his work like I complain about my work. Like, if I have a bad commute to work, I'm just going to, say, I don't want to do this anymore. He just says things. That's true. But at the time, he meant it. That doesn't mean that when, the lights go on in the regular season and there are opportunities to assert himself, certainly on the board, that he's not going to take them. And he is a starter on this team. He's going to be a starter on this team. And he's shown it because they need him. They need that rebounding presence. You have everything else, in this lineup, just in terms of scoring and shooting, and wing defense. And he's part of that wing defense. But I think his big contribution is twofold. One is rebounding offensively and defensively. And then also, he's a pretty good initiator in the offense. What we saw against Miami is that they wanted to kind of alleviate a lot of the burden on Jalen Brunson because Miami was picking them up full court. It was a full court press. And when you give the ball to Jalen Brunson to make him break that press every single possession, it's going to be taxing. It's going to be hard on him, and then he's not going to be able to produce the way that he can. So what they did was they gave the ball either to Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges to kind of bring the ball up, initiate the offense a little bit, and that really helped Jalen Brunson in that game. So Josh Hart is a part of that. I think he's, obviously he's going to be a starter moving forward. That's no question.
Yeah, he's been a good piece, helping out the offense in many different ways. Gotta love to see that if you're a Knicks fan. Stefan Bondy joining us a little bit to talk about the Knicks. Couple more things, Steph. I want to talk to you about OG Anunoby because he's been a defensive anchor for the Knicks so far, part of Wingstop, as you talked about. How significant, because you wrote a good piece on it this week, how significant has his impact been on the team's defensive schemes, and what makes him so effective on defense?
Yeah, I mean, he's a neutralizer because I don't think I've ever covered anybody who can switch on so many different players defensively. I think he can switch on 1 through 5 for most teams. I wrote today he switched on, 90% of the NBA, give or take. There's no exact number, but it's somewhere in that range. And when we talk about the Miami game, there was, different parts of the game. He was covering Bam Adebayo. He was covering Jimmy Butler. He was covering Terry Rozier. I mean, this is the kind of versatility that you're talking about. And one of the fun things about watching him play defense is how low he gets. I mean, his center of gravity is so low that even though he's 6'7", 6'8", he's able to get in these lanes and just strip guards when they come in because he's so low. And there was, Josh Hart was marveling at his ability to do a two-handed swipe steal, which I have never seen before, and I had to look back and see the replay, but it's true. He legitimately tried to steal the ball with 2 hands, swiping down, which I've never seen before. But that's how low he can get, and kind of that speaks to his instincts and his ability to get in the lane.
Yeah, he's a tremendous defender. Knicks fans have seen all those little intangibles so important with OG Anunoby. Now, you recently wrote about Precious Achiuwa, said he's progressing in his recovery from a hamstring injury. How soon do you think he'll be ready to contribute, and what will his presence add to this rotation that we clearly know needs a little bit more depth?
Well, he didn't practice today, and I haven't checked the injury report, which came out about, 20 minutes ago, but I assume he's not playing. Cam Payne, from what I heard, was he's doubtful with also a strained hamstring. So their bench is depleted. They've been running with an 8-man rotation, 3 coming off the bench: Jericho Sims, Cam Payne, and Miles McBride. So now if you take Cam Payne out of the equation, now you got to play somebody else. Maybe it's Tyler Kolek. And I don't know a lot of fans are excited about the rookie because he looked good in Summer League and he looked good in the preseason. He might get thrown in there now. But this is a team that's deep on the bench. We've been talking about it from the beginning. So when you take out Precious Achiuwa, you're going to have to give big minutes to somebody like Jericho Sims. And now if Cam Payne doesn't play tomorrow, do you throw Tyler Kolek into the mix? I think it's going to be interesting because Houston is a very good team.
Yeah, they are a very good team, and the Knicks' depth will be tested. So that brings me to my last thing here, Steph. Knicks are going to wrap up this road trip in H-Town, where you are right now, against the Rockets, then in the ATL to battle the Hawks. How do you think the Knicks match up against both of these teams, and what are the keys to them finishing off this road trip with a winning record?
Well, the Hawks, all right, let's start with the Rockets. They got Dylan Brooks, who's a pest. They have Ime Udoka as who's really given them identity. Now, remember the last time they were in this building in Houston, I don't know if you remember what happened, but there was that controversial call where Jalen Brunson was called for a phantom foul. And it was such a bad call that the Knicks actually filed a formal protest. So they're coming back here, kind of this, House of Horror situation where they had a difficult time last year. I still think they match up well. I think, they could win this game, but I give it about a 50-50. The Hawks at this point, I don't know where they are. I don't know if they have an identity right now. Obviously, they traded DeJounte Murray. They're going all in on Trae Young, but I don't even know if they realize they are fully invested in Trae Young. So I think out of these 2 games, obviously the Atlanta one is easier. They've had 2 days off now after the Detroit game to get ready for Houston. I would say they go 2-0. That's my prediction.
All right, I like that prediction. 2-0, so 4-0 road trip. We'll see if the Knicks can come back 4-0 from their road trip. Right now, 2-0 as they're halfway through it. That is Stefan Bondy. Thank you for joining us from H-Town on this week's edition of New York Got Game. Steph, enjoy the next 2 games of the road trip. I will see you when you get back to New York.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Knicks are heating up.
Okay, we'll see how the Knickerbockers fare this week and if they can stay above 500 after the road trip. Special thanks to my guest this week, Stefan Bondy from the New York Post. Next week, we're going to open it up to questions from the fans. We tried that in the preseason. We'll do that once again. I'll have more details on that later in the week. And be sure to tap into Knicks Weekly Live at 7:30 p.m. this Thursday with myself and Brian Fonseca. Thanks, as always, to my editor, Matt Oshland, producer Nick Federico, and director Zachary Taub. I'm Dexter Henry. We will catch you next time on New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.